So we're taking a look at the government structure, the top, to the middle, now we're getting to the bottom of the government structure, how they're maintaining law and order in this colony, right, in New Spain. Okay, so lastly we come to the town council. This is the town level of government. So say you live in this little town, there's going to be a town council, and that town council is known as the Cabildo. The Cabildo basically is a small organization. Sometimes it varies in size, but you'll have councilors who will sit on this, and basically their job is to maintain order and all the functioning of that particular town. They're running the local government. Okay, so they have to collect taxes from everyone who lives in that town. They have to hire a police system, right? So officers to maintain laws and order so that things don't get out of hand and chaotic. You don't have riots and people not following the law. So you have to have a police force, right? They also are going to regulate prices and wages, right? So they have control over the economy at the town level. Okay, so that people aren't just charging crazy high prices for their goods. You have to be able to regulate those prices to a certain degree. And so that type of regulation will take place at the town level in the Cabildo, okay, this town council. Okay, so who is in the town council? Who's in the Cabildo? You're going to have the regidores. These are counselors, right? And again, the position is for sale. So if you got the money, you can be a counselor. But a lot of people don't have the money. That's why it's a limited number of people who get these positions, you see. But the good thing is, when you buy that position, it's usually in perpetuity, meaning that you can pass it on to your kids. It doesn't end in 5 years like the corregidor. It ends usually for generations after generations, okay? So I may buy this position. So, okay, I got a lot of money maybe I got a bunch of businesses in that town. I'm doing well. I'm going to buy a position on the town council because it has a bunch of prestige with it. People are going to respect me. That's great, right? But also, I can make more money on, I could through my position of power, political power, right? And I can pass it on to my kids. Okay, so that's a pretty good deal. And usually, the individuals who buy these positions are local criollos, right? Have we talked about the difference between criollos and peninsulares yet? I don't think we have. No. Okay, so a Creole, basically a Creole is somebody who is full-blooded Spanish, but they were born in the Americas. So if you're full-blooded Spanish and you were born in Spain, you would be, if you're a full-blooded Spanish and you were born in New Spain, Mexico, you would be a Creole, okay? The opposite of that are full-blooded Spaniards who were actually born in Spain, on the Iberian Peninsula. They're called peninsulares.
Is that the same as the people in Louisiana, the Creoles?
Not exactly. That definition kind of changes a little bit. Because Creole in Louisiana is like referring to, it's referring to the culture. You know what I mean? Yes, they were individuals from Spain. Like there were Spanish people who lived in Louisiana. There were French people who lived in Louisiana. There were African Americans who lived in Louisiana, and all that came together to kind of create that Creole culture there. So it's a little bit different. It's the same word. It's kind of related, but it's not referring to the same culture that you have in Louisiana. You know what I mean? Like in this case, it's just people who are full-blooded Spanish that were born in the Americas. Okay. We'll talk more about that. Like we're gonna, because there's a whole conflict that goes on between Creoles and Peninsulares. These two Spanish groups who are kind of vying for the best political positions. Right? But at the town level, in the Cabildo and the town council, this is where the Creoles have a lot of power. Okay. Next up, let's get to the Indian villages at the local level. Now, there's a number of Indian villages in New Spain at this time, right? And they're just kind of separate from the Spanish towns and cities, right? They're living in their own indigenous communities. And so they have their own political leaders that are working within the Spanish system, okay? And so the Spanish will basically depend on these Indian leaders to maintain control in their villages or towns. Okay, a lot of times these political leaders are actually former nobility from back when they were ruled under the Aztec Empire, or if they had their own independent state. There was a noble class, right? Remember we talked about the pipiltin, the nobles? Well, a lot of time these guys were the ones who were in local government at the Indian village or town level, okay? Now that the Spanish have taken over. And so they'll have their own town council, their own cabildo, and basically they'll have their town councilors, they'll have their own governor, right? As well, the gobernador, that's basically the governor there in that Indian village. And these guys, their job is basically to maintain control of that village for the Spanish. They are going to be collecting tribute, right, which is like taxes. Usually that tribute will come in the form of agricultural goods. So maybe that village is growing corn, beans, and squash and other things like that. That could be given to the Spanish as a form of tribute. Maybe they're producing items, you know, similar to what we were talking about with the Aztecs, right? How they were collecting tribute. Now the Spanish is collecting tribute, okay? And so they're collecting this tribute. This is the job of the leaders. They'll also be giving off lands to certain individuals who are there in the village for their usage, right? So say, you know, your family needs maybe some extra land or plots of land for agriculture. That could be apportioned out or allotted to you by the local leaders in that village or town, the native leaders, right, the Indian leaders. And also, of course, they have to maintain law and order within their village and town, so they have to administer justice, okay? And you can see, like, I mean, if you take a look at the big picture here, basically the Spanish have to set up this whole system so that they don't have chaos going on the ground. They got to maintain some type of organization, because if you don't have organization, you have instability. And if things are unstable, how are you going to really collect all that you can in terms of profit, right? Maybe a profit in the forms of tribute, or profit in the forms of other goods that are being produced in New Spain, or silver that you're mining, okay? And so you have to have a government organization in order to make all that work. And so that's what we're talking about, okay? So for Indian political leaders, basically they have to do a balancing act here, because on one hand, they have to please the Spanish because they got to collect that tribute, maintain order. But on the other hand, they have to maintain the respect of the native people who live in their village. Because if they don't respect them, then they're going to rebel against them. They're not going to listen to them, right? So these Indian leaders had to really walk a fine line and balance things out here so that they could do their job and maintain order and still have the people respect them.